Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. I'm your host, Adam Hartel, and I'm very, very excited for today's guest, Anton Grandert, who has been working on some of the recent Star Wars stream programs like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan. But before we get into that, I just want to take a little care of a little bit of housekeeping off the top. And that is, first of all, I'd love to thank Lenovo for sponsoring today's stream. Thanks to Lenovo's generous sponsorship, we're able to continue providing free educational and industry content to you on our channel. And if you are in need of closed captioning during today's stream, we have that available on our Facebook platform. So you just head over to Gnomon's Facebook page and you can watch us there on Facebook Live, and you'll be able to turn on closed captioning and view that there. So without any further ado, before we bring Anton onto the stream, I'd like to just share with you a little bit of information about our guest. Anton is a concept artist and concept designer from Sweden, currently working with Lucasfilm for TV shows like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Before that, Anton worked at EA Dice in Stockholm for several years on games like Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Battlefield, and Battlefront 1 and 2. Anton has a background as a musician and music and art teacher, and switched his career to becoming a full-time artist in his late 20s. He still enjoys playing music in his band Superstar Orkestar, and takes any chance he can get to share his knowledge of the arts, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing today. So with that, I'd love to welcome Anton to the stream. Hey, Anton, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you. Yeah, it's going great. Thanks for joining us today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm super excited. I have to admit, this is the first for me. I've never done any streaming like this before.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I hope things go
smoothly. Yeah, and you know, I got the idea to reach out to you about the stream. I think when I saw you did a news special for a Swedish news channel, looking at some of the 3D work you've done behind some of your paintings. And I thought, oh man, we've got to do that on the Gnomon live stream. So I'm happy to offer this to you as your first experience streaming. I hope it's a great one for you.
It feels like I couldn't be in better hands, actually.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's basically live television. So, be prepared for anything. We don't know what's going to happen. But before we jump into looking at some of the amazing art that you've done and talking about your process and those kind of things, I would love to just ask you a little bit about your origin story. In your bio, it talks about you getting started as a full-time artist in your late 20s. So I've got to believe that there's an interesting story there. And a question that I get asked commonly when I'm, speaking with prospective students and aspiring artists about Gnomon is, how late is too late to get started working as an artist in the entertainment industry? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think to answer that, I think it's never too late, obviously. Just look at me. Yeah, so for me, well, I guess we have to go back to my childhood. I grew up in a family with both my parents were actually artists, so I kind of got so much inspiration from there. But I think it wasn't until maybe I was around maybe 6, 7, 8 years when it really took off with my drawing. I've been, my father was a composer, and he played all kinds of instruments. So I was surrounded by instruments and art and painting and books and film and all that. So, but when I was around 6 years, I think I discovered Star Wars, actually. And
I think I've got, well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think while you're sharing about this part of your story, I think we've got some of your early artwork.
Yeah.
I don't know how far back or how early it goes, but I can pull some of this up if you like.
Yeah, please do.
I think I see one here that's a very, very early piece. Maybe one of the first Grandert originals from the early days. When you were young. I can flip through these to whatever you'd like to see.
Yeah, that might look like I was very young, but I did that when I was around 30, I think.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and then you've got some call outs here, so you're doing a bit of
yeah. So that's a bit later. I was we'll come to that later, maybe. That has a
let me zoom back out here for you, and then you can call out
if we
what you
can
like.
find some of the images from when I was a kid, maybe. That's
oh,
really...
sure. And I'll let you take that if you've got the images on your end too.
Yeah, let's see if I can find them.
I can jump out
around. Let's see. Yeah. So let's see.
Well, and I bringing it up because I know that when you were recently at Star Wars Celebration with the team from Lucasfilm, one of the things that Doug Chang had you guys do was you each of you shared some of your early artwork, that showed some kind of your early inspirations, and I love it when artists do that because it reminds us all that we all kind of started at the same place.
Here's some. You can see this now. Perfect.
Yeah.
So it actually says, it's actually my father usually wrote the date here. So you can read it says 1984. So I was only around 6-7 years when I did this. And
that's
I
awesome.
don't think I even saw the movies yet. I got maybe some of these books you read, and there was a little cassette, and you listened to it, and there was this R2D2 sound, and you flip page. And so because I couldn't see the movies because I was too young, a way to kind of experience movies was to create my own stories in this drawings and paintings. Yeah, this is quite fun, actually.
It's amazing because with the age that you're at, it's very, very clear what the subject matter is, and you're already designing. Like I saw the back of Boba Fett. Now we're seeing what looks like the side of a Gamorrean guard. So you're already kind of thinking this way.
Just for, as a concept artist, you get a lot of reference, and when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of reference for Gamorrean, but I had a toy. So my anatomical understanding of a Gamorrean was probably that, well, the arm goes off just like that.
Yep, naturally, yes.
I was really interested in nature, of course, because I lived by the forest, and I picked up watercolor at an early age because my mom, she was a watercolorist also. So this was when I was quite young as well. Here's actually a portrait of my father I did when I was around 8-9 years. But as you can see, I had some kind of a talent and interest for drawing. That's a trombone. I played the trombone, by the way. You can see a trombone is just behind me there. I guess this is a self-portrait. Awesome. And this image is quite fun. I know my old trombone teacher. He has used this for some kind of cover art for a book. I really think this is one of the challenges we all go through as an artist or as a musician or as a human being, I guess. You have a brilliant idea what you want to do, but maybe you don't really have the skills yet. But what do? You just keep practicing, and one day you might get here. But also, I think this image kind of communicates the two big parts of doing concept art, and of course, it's not just about being a good painter or a 3D artist. I mean, half the job, or maybe more even, is coming up with the idea. So having this, but not this, I would say it's probably better to have this. And then you can learn this.
Yes.
Of course you can learn this, but this can take a long time to come up with the ideas. You're building up kind of a library of good ideas. You're building up your taste when it comes to different areas in in concept art and design. And but in the end, it's not enough to have good ideas. You have to have skills to execute them as well.
But I like that order you're talking about. I agree. It's I used to get very dissatisfied when I was younger because my mind would see things that were more than what I could execute, right? Both in art and music. And I had a mentor say to me once, like, hey, that's awesome. Like, that's a great place to be in. I was like, what do you mean? I always feel dissatisfied with what I make. And they said, can you imagine if you made a piece and you were just like, well, that's it. I've got nothing left to learn. I can do it all. That he's like, that sounds really boring, doesn't it? I was like, yeah, actually it does. So I love that thing where what you see in your mind's eye always pushes you to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, not always, or even now when I've reached a point where I'm now, it's not always I get exactly what I want.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and,
sure.
And that sometimes that can feel a bit discouraging. Sometimes it feels like you have kind of failed because you didn't. The image didn't become as fantastic as you wanted, or you didn't really do exactly what you felt was the image or so. But and it's very easy to become very self-critical in that sense.
Of course.
But the thing is that this kind of inner vision, or whatever we should call it, the force maybe, no one else can really see that. No one else can jump in your head and see what you can see. They can see what you present, and maybe what you have presented in your image, they think it's fantastic because they have nothing to compare to. So this is your secret little guide or compass that guides you towards something. And if you reach halfway, I mean, you can be happy, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good advice for all of us, because I think especially designers have a tendency to be perfectionists because of everything you just said. But that idea of I think really absorbing the feedback that you're getting from others. You might be incredibly critical, but your art director or someone you're showing the piece to could say, "This is it. This is what I want," or "This looks fabulous." So, do we allow ourselves to receive the benefit of that feedback, or do we withhold it? And I think that's really critical.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that for quite some time, of course, and I'm like everyone else. I'm very self-critical, and sometimes I'm a bit too perfectionistic. But when I started to think about that instead of always being disappointed, instead, why not be super happy that I have this kind of vision that helps me? No one else can see this, what's inside my head. They can see my paintings, and they think, oh, that looks good. Okay, good, cool.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, you showed us you were very much into art, and you're drawing at a very young age. But you didn't necessarily take that path of, art through high school and then apply to an art school and then, go straight into professional art at a younger age. You pivoted and you had a different type of career. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yes. Yeah, I did a lot of drawing, and I thought it was super, super fun to draw, and it was kind of a way for me to escape into my own world and create worlds. But I also had the music in my life. I was playing instruments, and at one point I felt I needed to choose what I should go for. And I think I was around, it was in the 9th grade in school, because we had to choose what to do next. What school should I go to? Should I go to... I was also very interested in science, as you can see in this school catalog cover that I did when I was in the 7th grade. So I did a lot of chemistry in my garage, some bit more explosive, and yes. So what happened was that I didn't know how to use my talent for art. This was before internet, and I had never heard about concept art. As I told you before, my parents were artists, and I thought, well, maybe I could become an artist, or so, I don't know. But I didn't really know what I could use my skills for.
Okay.
So I just, basically what I did, I just gave it up and went for music, because I thought I got such a kick out of being on stage and playing my instrument.
Yeah.
So there was something more appealing to me about being here and now and playing music in front of an audience, and so I made the decision to go for music, actually. And for almost 10 years, I didn't draw or paint anything. I just went 100% music,
Yeah.
Went to music school, went to music university. I did a lot of work for symphony orchestras and jazz bands, pop bands, traveling all around the world, having so much fun with that. But in the end, there needs to be a balance in the force. No, I felt there was something missing. Actually, after going for music for around 10, that's a different story. I won't tell the whole story about what happened there. But I came to a point where I realized that I had lost the passion for making music. It was not quite what I expected. However, I was probably around 25 when I started to realize that everything I had focused on all my entire life was not the thing for me. And that was a really, really, really hard time, actually, because I had loved playing music so much, but then I kind of just lost the motivation and lost the passion, and I couldn't see a way going back. So what I needed to do, I was lost for a few years. I didn't know what to do. It was a kind of big hole to fill, being creative 100% in the music world, and then suddenly doing nothing in the creative world. I was working as a teacher for a while and then doing all the kind of small gigs. And so what I did eventually, I kind of sat down one summer at a cafe in Berlin and started to write a list about myself. Like, so who am I? What do I like? What am I good at? And I was just trying to go through my whole, character sheet, if you will. And see if I can find some clues. And I remember I was writing down. To do this, I actually had to go back all the way to my childhood, because I really believe that when you're a child, you can find so many clues. You're very honest. So I did that basically. I went back and looked at myself as a child, when I was a child, and so that, I was really, really interested in film. I was really, really interested in playing computer games. I was really interested in painting and drawing. I was interested in painting miniature, like Warhammer. I was really interested in nature and science. I was interested in Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, fantasy, science fiction, everything like that. And a lot of other stuff. And from that point, actually, my life started to change. Something had changed inside me when I did this whole kind of inventory list of who I was. So it was only just I think that was basically the summer of 2009. 2 years after I had a job at DICE.
Wow. Yeah.
But actually, I think it was around 4 years before 2004. That's when I rediscovered art. Mm-hmm. So what happened? I grew up in a small town, and my mom took me to a life drawing class. Maybe we have some of those life drawing images.
Yeah, you want me to go find those?
Yeah, maybe if you can find those. Let's see if you can. Maybe.
Oh, you've got it. Okay.
Yeah. Here we have it. So my mom, she was an artist, and she's an artist, and she was a art teacher, and mm-hmm. she took me to this life drawing class. I hadn't painted or drawn for quite a while, maybe 10 years. Well, mm-hmm. one occasional scribble here and there maybe, but it was not something I was going for really. And so here are some of the life drawings from that time, mm-hmm. and some more recent ones. And I thought it was so much fun because, as I said before, leaving music, that was a bit depressing, actually, very depressing. I got very depressed. And finding out that, wow, art is so much fun. I really enjoy this, being in the moment, mm-hmm. feeling the flow, and feeling that, I mean, there was a lot of hard work, of course, but for some strange reason, it felt like this 10-year gap. It was not like I started from back 10 years. Something mm-hmm. had kind of happened during the 10 years. I can't really
absolutely.
explain it. But maybe I had matured a bit. Maybe, I mean, drawing and painting is not about what your arm does. It's what you see.
Yes.
So, I mean, 10 years of experience looking at stuff, and thinking about things. I don't know. Maybe that was one of the things that happened.
Yeah, I'm nodding a lot as you're talking, because I mean, you and I have talked about this, and I have there's things in my story of pivoting into art from something else later in life, which I won't get into because the stream's not about me. But what you say about even though you had this gap of actually making art, your perception grew. You grew as a person. You're at a different stage of life. I couldn't agree with that more. Let's see. I want to put a photo up on the screen really quickly, because you're telling us all of this, and there's sort of this rediscovery of art and everything, and then suddenly you find yourself. Let me put this up. Yeah, you find yourself here. So this is you talking with Doug Chang, and I think you were at Abbey Road in London. Is that right? Okay. So because we're about to jump into some of this. Some of these amazing, I think, paintings and also designs, set designs and so forth that you've done for these shows, working together with Doug. But talk to us about how this happened. So you had these several years where you're jumping back into art, and you started working at DICE, and then I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% how it happened, but I can tell you my side of the story.
Yeah, sure.
So I applied to work at DICE 2011, and luckily I got a job. I was kind of on, what do you call it, probation, or when you're on trial. I mean, I was on trial.
Oh yeah, probation. No.
Yeah. Pardon my English, my Swinglish.
No problem.
Yeah. So.
And I'm just, while you're talking here, I'm going to put up a little bit of your Battlefront art.
Yeah, please. When I started at DICE, we worked on a secret project for 1 year, which was cancelled, unfortunately. Then I got an opportunity to work on Mirror's Edge, which was a project I really, really felt a lot about, and I really loved that. I really, really loved Mirror's Edge. I thought it was fantastic. However, in 2013, we were called into this huge meeting, the whole company, at the local theater, and they turned down the lights, and suddenly music came on. I heard straight away what it was, Imperial March. And I thought, okay, wow, what does this mean? I mean, can't just be coincidence. So they let us know that we had done a deal with Disney Electronic Arts to make Star Wars games.
Awesome.
So on the same day, I actually, even though I love Mirror's Edge a lot, talking about going back to this inner child, Star Wars, I changed project on the same day. So 2013, I started working on the Star Wars game, the Battlefront 1. So these slides you're showing here are some of the really, really early explorations of different planets. And it's really fun to see these images because I had no skill in 3D at all at this time. Everything was about painting. And I was working with this really, really fantastic art director that was actually the original art director for Mirror's Edge 1. And he encouraged me to not use photos at all in my paintings. He wanted me to paint everything by hand. And that was really, really difficult for me because I felt like I was, I never went to art school. I learned everything by myself. I basically just picked up Photoshop a year before starting at DICE. So it was a bit difficult in the beginning, but I'm quite thankful that I went through that phase because I had to learn so much about the craft of painting, how colors work, how light work, how you do a design, how you build up an image in Photoshop, and of course I was looking a lot at traditional art as well to get inspiration. So working on these Star Wars games, everything that is has something to do with Star Wars and design has to kind of go through Lucasfilm. And I would say specifically maybe Doug Chung is one of the guys who are reviewing all this. So he had seen my work for the Battlefront games, and I know he visited DICE 1 or 2 times, and I was so starstruck I couldn't hardly say anything. But so this image you showed about with me sitting in a sofa with Doug Chang and at Abbey Road, the story behind that was that since I'm a musician as well, the audio director at DICE, he knew that. And he said, hey, we are recording the soundtrack for Battlefront at Abbey Road with London Symphony Orchestra. You can join if you want. You have to pay for it yourself, of course. But I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going. And by coincidence, they were shooting, I think it was episode 8 at Pinewood Studios outside London at the same time. So I had gotten Doug's email. So I emailed him and asked, is it possible if I can come for a visit at the set? Because that would be a dream for me. And I thought maybe I can kind of connect with him a little bit more. Because I have to say, secretly, I think I wanted to work with some of the movies. The games were fantastic, but there was something, I was growing up with these ILM documentaries about the Return of Jedi and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, I never got to Pinewood Studios. There was something about this security reason or something. I was not allowed to be on the set. So the audio director, Ben, at DICE, he said, well, why don't you invite Doug to Abbey Road instead? And I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. So I did so, and I brought a little backpack with my childhood drawings. So what we are looking at here are my the images we saw before, all this Star Wars X-wings and stuff like that. And so I think I was kind of trying to make him remember me, not just as a skilled concept artist, but really, I wanted to show him that I was passionate about this.
Yes, yeah.
By showing him these images, and of course, just being in the studio while the London Symphony Orchestra was playing all this fantastic music. You should check it out on any platform. The Battlefront music
it's great. Yeah,
fantastic.
That was one of the things I loved about the game was the music, the immersive experience that the music provided. You felt like you were in one of the films.
Yes, so that was around, I can't remember, I think it was around maybe 2015 or 17 or something like that. And then a few years later, end of 2017, I got an email from him actually. And he asked if I wanted to talk about something outside work, outside DICE work, that means. And I was like, oh, what could this be? Yes, that was Mandalorian season 1. And I started working on that in the beginning of 2018. And that's also when I left DICE after 7 years.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Lucasfilm and Doug, by the way, almost 5 years later now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I remember when when the Mandalorian was initially rumored, and then it was announced, and then we saw some first images at Star Wars Celebration that year. It's hard to believe how much time has gone by, and how much more we've gotten. And I realize the image that I put up on the screen here is not from the Mandalorian season 1. For the initiated, you all know this. But Anton and I, we talked off camera, and we talked about, what would be some of the fun projects to get into, looking at some of the images that Anton's made, but then pulling back the curtain and kind of looking at the construction of some of that in 3D. And so I know this was one of the ones we talked about starting with, if you're interested in jumping into this one.
Yeah, sure.
And then guys, as we're getting into this, any questions that you have for Anton as we're looking into his art, you have questions for him about his artwork, his process, something we're looking at. I'll try to do my best to bring up any relevant questions in the moment, but I am keeping a backlog of questions that we're going to take more time at the end of the stream to get into questions from you guys. So please feel free to type your questions in the chat. All right. Oh, cool. Here we are.
So this is one of the programs I'm usually work in, and this is 3D Code. Doesn't really matter what program it is, really. The assignment was pretty straightforward, and the brief was very short. Basically, it read, a Rancor has broken loose in Mos Espa. What happens? So that was super fun. I had to kind of come up with some ideas for a Rancor on rampaging the streets of Mos Espa. So sometimes I do a kind of a quick sketch in this program. It's quite good for that, and it's quite easy to pose up things. It's quite fluent. It's basically I use it like Photoshop basically, and just by yeah, it is like that. You can just blah 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 and so on. Yep. And when I did when I was kind of happy with some of these assets that I created in 3D Code, I actually had just started using Blender. So I can show you what it looks like in that program. Hang on, there was something more I wanted to show before.
Sure. It's really fun also as you're hopping through some of the different parts of the process. We're seeing this finished image in front of us, and then we're kind of seeing how you build it up, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. So you saw what the model looked like previously. This is the same program, and what's nice about this is also kind of going back to my childhood painting miniatures. The same feeling. So I was kind of trying to, just for fun, since it was a bit of a blue sky concept, I wanted to distinguish the Rancor from the one seen in Return of Jedi. So I thought maybe it would be cool if it had a kind of different skin like this.
Yeah, it's really. I think the first time I saw that, I can't remember what the context was, but at first I saw the stripes and I was like, oh, is that war paint? Is that like war paint on a Rancor? I thought, that's cool.
So moving over to Blender, this is where I compiled the whole scene, and this is also where I did a lot of little story moments.
Yeah. Really quickly, someone just asked in the chat, was the Rancor model provided, or did you model that yourself?
No, I didn't model the Rancor. I didn't need to because I could get a model. But as you saw, I did some little improvements on it that I thought I needed.
Which makes sense, because in production, you don't want to spend energy on something that you don't need to do. if you can get that Rancor asset.
Usually, as you probably already know, everyone, when you work as a concept artist in production, you usually don't have a lot of time to do these things. So any shortcut I can take, I take. Because this was all about the story. This was not really about the design so much. So I just needed to come up with some fun story ideas, and this was one, of course. Also a bit of a reference to Return of Jedi, when we see the Rancor for the first time, and he's eating the Gamorrean guard.
Yeah.
And I thought, what could be... Okay, so if we're going to show the Rancor once more, we need to top that. So I thought, okay, if he's not eating one person, what can he eat? Maybe he eats a whole land speeder.
Yeah.
Like a sandwich with two people in it.
And it kind of does look like a sandwich,
Yeah.
It has a sandwich-like shape. Now, I'm curious, I mean, you showed us, you've kind of this initial blockout sketch you do in 3D Coat, and then you're here. Before you go into Blender and start adding, other models and posing them, that kind of stuff, are you going straight to populating that in 3D, or are you doing a little sketch for yourself to kind of get an idea of what sort of composition you're going for, or how does that happen for you?
Yeah, I rarely do any sketches, actually. Sometimes, if I'm off the computer, I might do a sketch, but I don't know, for some reason, I have a pretty good ability to see things within.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of sketching in my mind. And for me, it's much faster than sketching on a paper, and also it's much faster to do iterations in my mind. So I usually don't really need to do that. And I also like, sometimes it's easier to just build up a scene like this, and after that, you can also find really cool
and make your discoveries as you go.
Absolutely, it kind of opens up for some happy accidents. So if I can on a bit of other. Yes, so this is with the full lighting on.
Oh, you're in. Are you in cycles now?
Yeah, this is cycles.
Yeah, that's great. Looks really good.
So here was also one of the ideas of a possible piece of concept, where you kind of in the distance you see this little poor person and the Rancor, and you can see all the mess it kind of created on the way there. So I thought that could be a fun image to see what happened. What does it look like after the Rancor has been there?
Totally. Yeah, that's really cool. This reminds me of, when I was a kid playing, you set up all your action figures and you make your scene. And then I don't know if you did this, but I'd get my head down in there and I'd look at different camera angles and, try to direct the scene with my toys and stuff. And it's kind of like what you're doing in 3D now.
Yes, it's very, very, very similar. I did the same thing. I was playing with one of my best friends, and he had so many plants homes. We usually played Andor at his place. So this is what I did, and then it's just I kind of like this way of working, because then you can just first you don't even need to focus on the colors. You can just focus on the action, the story, and then eventually you maybe you put textures and everything.
Yeah.
And then you can start really finding some cool camera angles for everything. I think I have a lot of different versions here see if I can jump into them. Yeah, here's one. There's one. And all these I sent off as still images.
Oh, yeah.
With a
kind
bit
of proofs.
Yeah, so this is kind of I would call these maybe sketches, 3D sketches.
Okay.
Because these were not. I didn't put any at this stage when I sent them off. I didn't put much effort into painting anything, because I didn't want to waste any time. Having this 3D scene, I can do changes really quickly. If I wanted to change the size of the Rancor, if I needed to change the lighting, if we needed to find a different angle that works better for some reason, or anything. And anyone who has been working a lot with 3D maybe they recognize all these characters.
Yeah.
They are. I have downloaded them from Mixamo, which is a great platform for doing finding animation. So I did a lot of running and stumbling and falling characters from exported from Mixamo. And of course, the idea is that I can show you. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, we've got some people remarking in the chat. They're probably noticing how, and I don't know what kind of system you're running, but how quickly Cycles was rendering as you're moving about. Someone was wanting to know, is what you've got in Blender, is that more low poly? Or are you even worrying about that?
No, I'm pretty bad at 3D, first of all. So I'm very bad at optimizing, but I only start to worry when everything starts slowing down, and when I can't even render anymore, then I'm starting to get really worried. So I'm getting better and better at optimizing and trying to keep it low poly. And actually, there's a bit of a balance I noticed. The better 3D material, the more, let's say, higher poly, maybe better textures, more realistic characters, the less you have to paint. And the worst 3D you have, the more you have to paint. And so it kind of depends, where do you want to spend most of the time? Sometimes. I can just show you a little comparison here with Let's see if I just.
And I know that this question is inevitable, so I'll just ask it now. What spec system are you running? Like, what kind of graphics card do you have? Or
Yeah, I have a 390 graphics card.
okay.
And, this computer is 5 years old. And I bought it when I started working on this Lucasfilm project. It was a bit delayed though, but I just wanted to show you the difference between maybe it's better to do that in Photoshop. I just want to show actually what I changed in the characters.
Oh yeah.
Because I did quite a lot. Well, not a lot, but enough so it doesn't quite look like the exact same. Let's see if I can find that camera again. Where was it?
I love those shots of the kind of King Kong up on the tower, Rancor.
Oops. Yep. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Window maximize. I just need to do this first. Yeah, so we can just look at this character, for instance, and see if you can zoom in there. Whoops.
I mean, it's pretty cool what you've been able to achieve already just in Blender.
Yeah, I mean, it works. Let's put the light on as well so we can see it looks a bit more similar.
And I can see too, when you show us that comparison, I can really see the time and the dedication you've spent developing sensibilities as a painter. You know, then you get to really make some great painting decisions on top of that.
Yeah, so I'm basically using. Of course, I go as far as I can in 3D without getting to the point I'm. Yeah, there's always this point you get to when the returns are diminishing a bit. So I try to stop myself there and jump into Photoshop then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. I know that from working in Blender myself for similar purposes. For myself anyway, there's a certain point that I have to tell myself, okay, I need to stop tinkering with the scene because I'll just start chasing my tail and it'll never end. And then I have to move on to the next phase.
And here's that one. Let's see if I have that one as well.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
A bit of comparison. And when I do these scenes, let's see. I don't really have to follow the laws of the physics so much. So if I need to have some awning here or something like that, it could be just like that, And same with the.
Yeah, just build another scene above it.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that, but you can, and it worked.
Yeah. It's the poetic license of concept artists. You can break the laws of physics if the final image works.
I think I wanted to have the right camera angle, and I think these buildings were in the way, and maybe I was too lazy to hide them. Maybe.
Well, and it seems like you used a long lens in the end as well, so you needed your camera a bit further away from the subject.
Let's see if I have the.
This is a really cool playground, though.
Let's see if I open up the. Here it is, I think. Let's see. Yes.
Someone's wanting to know how long you typically have from start to finish making an image like this.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough question to answer, because usually what I do, I rarely just do one image.
Sure.
What I mostly do is I'm building up a whole design or a set, and from that set, from that scene you saw in Blender here, there's no limit how many images I can get out pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah.
It's just I think that the time factor depends on how much do I need to design. I think if I don't need to design a lot, it's usually much quicker. Of course, in this case, I have to come up with the cool story elements and so on. But I don't know. For a more advanced image like this, maybe one day. That's on average, I would say.
Yeah, and I know that just from hearing what Doug shared at Star Wars Celebration, you guys are all very seasoned in what you're doing on the team, and I know you guys have tighter turnarounds. Sometimes you gotta. I know that Doug said sometimes he'll get 4 images from you guys in a day. Those images might be at various stages, but I know that you guys are working fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it depends. I mean, an image like this takes a bit longer because there's a bit more painting involved. But there's other tricks. I mean, you can take a 3D render and you can do different filters on top of it, so it looks like it's painted, and then it kind of looks like you spent a whole day on it. So there's different tricks, but in the end, it's about the idea and showing it. Really, it doesn't.
I know
we rarely
challenging...
talk about how long.
Right.
I don't think we ever talked about how long things take to make for 5 years. I know I asked the same question when I started. I was a bit curious. Okay, so what's the expectations? How much should I produce? But I don't know.
But you just you find your way as you go.
Yeah.
I know that step. I know for a lot of people, myself included, that step when you go from, okay, you've invested a lot of time setting up your scene in 3D, and then you're grabbing that render from Blender, for example, bringing it into Photoshop. A lot of artists, because I know that this is also something that we teach at Gnomon, is you have to then be willing to lose elements in your composition that you might have spent a lot of time working on in 3D. But the idea of trying to preserve everything that was there, takes away from that final painterly illustration that you're providing. You have to kind of kill off your darlings, as it were, when you get into the Photoshop stage. Do you encounter that as well?
Yeah, quite often. And sometimes it's actually a bit difficult to. I mean, 3D is fantastic, but sometimes it feels like you're building up a bit of almost like a prison around yourself, and you have to kind of break out of the prison somewhere.
Sure.
You have to break the 3D wall and to make the image become a 2D painting instead, and which means sometimes you have to lose some information and change things around.
I think also that's where those art fundamentals, the things that will always be true about art that we need to learn as artists, that's where they're so important. Because at the end of the day, you're creating something, and it can, if you're not careful, you can get lost in all of the things that the software can do for you. But at the end of the day, you are ultimately directing the image, and I think in order to do that effectively, it goes way beyond just having proficiency in the software. It's understanding the art that you're trying to make.
Yeah. I'm just looking through a bit some of the layers here. I think this is some.
Oh yeah, look at that.
This is just a reference image I put in here that I liked from, because I wanted the final image to have the same tone as the Mos Eisley colors.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some of the lighting cues here also. A very, very bright light here on the street. I didn't quite go as far here. Let's see. Yeah, actually, I did it a lot bigger in the beginning. So that was the feedback I got. I changed it.
You were asked to make him larger, or you?
No, I made him smaller, actually.
Okay, gotcha.
I larger from the beginning. Yeah, here we can see what we talked about, how I try to, see if we can zoom in a bit. Kind of going over some of the surfaces.
Yeah.
With...
like you're using a bit of mixer brush.
Yeah, a bit of mixer brush.
Yeah.
And a bit of just regular paint. Just trying to get that 3D feel out of it, make it look a bit more painterly. It just holds together a lot better when I do that.
One of the things that I love that you do so well, and I'm sure that a lot of artists that are doing what you do well, is I've noticed even just through your Instagram feed, your use of reference, but then also just the way that you study your reference. I've seen you go off and do quick painting studies of things, and just really to understand the world that you're working in, whether that's the tone or the style or those kinds of things. And so seeing those the screen grabs that you had from Mos Eisley from the films really makes sense in how you use that.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I would say I'm particularly interested in story and in lighting. And when I'm working on images like this, if I'm lucky, I will see something similar just by chance, maybe going out on the street or I don't know, browsing on internet. What happens is that when I encounter a challenge, a problem or something, and I don't really know how I should solve it, and that happens quite often. Something happens inside me. I become like a sponge, a sponge for information. So I'm walking around having all these question marks inside me, and suddenly I see something that might be the solution.
Yeah,
it might be how a shadow falls, how maybe some light bounces, or maybe even how some other artist solved it. And it's only if I have these kind of question marks already floating around that I suck in the information straight away. I would say it's a really, really quick way to learn. And so that means that it's always good to try to push yourself to do things that you're not used to.
Yeah.
In a way.
Do you intentionally mix times like that into your day? Like, will you get up and take a walk and change up your environment because you have some questions that you feel you need answered, and maybe you might find those answers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I do. Maybe we should look at a different image and see if I can show you some of the first stages for that.
Sure.
Let's see what we have.
Someone wants to know if that is a contra bass trombone behind you.
No, it's not a contrabass trombone. It's a tenor trombone. But
gotcha.
Do we have any trombonists in the audience here?
Yes.
Awesome.
They were asking, are you a slide or a valve guy? I'm assuming that's a trombonist question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm a slide guy.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, I can just show you one example of what I do when I get a new assignment. So this is actually might fire that as well. Let's see.
This was I don't mean to sidetrail here, but this village, I loved this village so much, because the shape language, like the cones on the tops of the huts, called back to some really early Ralph McQuarrie designs. Um, uh, and I mean, I'm not. Maybe that was subliminal, or you weren't even thinking about that. But it's a completely different environment. It was for an urban environment, and so to see a similar shape language show up in an environment like this, I really liked this village. It felt very original.
Yeah, I mean that's great. If it has any Ralph McQuarrie feel to it, I think that's a huge compliment. It's hard to not think about him when you do.
Of course, yeah.
Star Wars design, I have to say, and sometimes for inspiration, I have some of the books with him. I just flipping through and I can find clues how he was solving some of these images. So
I'm convinced that he would have used 3D like you are, if if he were doing it today, because he's such a designer.
Let's see. I'm just gonna stop that one and see what happens here. Okay.
Someone was wondering, because you mentioned that you were painting miniatures when you were younger. Someone wants to know what kind of miniatures you were painting.
I would say any miniatures I could get my hands on.
Yes.
You know, it was not so easy. So you can just, I want that one and that one. No, I grew up in a small town and we didn't have. Actually, we had one shop where they sold miniatures. But the best, of course, when we got into the bus with my father and went to the capital of Sweden, Stockholm, where I live now, 1 hour from my hometown, and went to this game shop, and they have wall full of Warhammer stuff and other stuff. So
I remember, I don't know if you got these, but I started out with the Ral Partha, they were lead or pewter miniatures, and then moved over to Warhammer from there.
So this, I worked on this set, the Krill Village, in 2018 for season 1, and let's see. Before I got even to this stage, even I did. Let's see if I can open up another one. See if my computer can handle it. I think I have too many windows up at the same time. Let's see. Okay. So the first thing I did was when I got a new assignment where I'm supposed to do come up with a new style or architecture style or do any kind of design work. Usually it's very hard for me to just jump into drawing or 3D straight away. I don't really know where to start. As I showed with that image with the trombone and the bubble.
Right.
I need to get the bubble first, you know.
You got to feed the bubble.
I need to feed the bubble. Yes. So what I usually do is I go to Google and I try to find a lot of reference image that I think would work for the brief. And I'm kind of slowly building up a feeling for where I'm going as I'm looking at these images. So in this case, we needed to design the huts first. So here are some of the reference image I found that I thought I could use.
And where is this in the world, by the way?
I think this is here.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, it could be anywhere, I guess.
That's
I kind of like this entrance here.
That's awesome. Look, somebody even did a cutaway of the structure. That's amazing.
Yeah. And to me, it's quite interesting how they build it also, because that can kind of hint how, if I need to do any interior also.
Look at that.
So yeah, images like this. I mean, this is not something everyone does this, of course, but I just wanted to show what I found. I thought this was pretty cool for maybe some of the people. I thought it could be cool.
Yeah, the reference gathering phase is one of my favorite phases because you will never run out of amazing discoveries to make in real life. Like so many of these things that we think don't exist that we see in science fiction. Oh, it's so different. It's so unique. I've never seen this before. It's ultimately inspired often by something in the real world, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, and you did these in 3D code as well.
Yeah. So this was before I learned Blender actually, and this was also before I got my computer. I was sitting on a 10-year-old laptop doing this.
Wow.
I was very, very stressed because I actually, this computer I'm working on, it was delayed 3 months. So I did three months of work for Mandalorian season 1 on a 10-year-old laptop.
Oh my goodness.
So, that's why I couldn't do any massive 3D scenes.
It's never too late to get into art, and apparently there's no laptop that's too old to be a professional.
And I didn't even have a big asset library. I kind of sculpted everything, which is quite interesting, except the character, of course. I didn't sculpt that, but all the interior, except those crates. Okay. It's a bit like working in clay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're just constructing a maquette, and I know that like James Gurney does this all the time. He'll build a maquette and and put lighting on it to get the study that he needs for his piece.
Yeah, I mean, people have been doing this for centuries, I guess, doing these maquettes. So the difference, I guess, is that I can take a screenshot of the maquette and paint on top of it, or maybe do a bit of a render and make it look nicer. It's all about, I guess, being efficient and saving time.
I'm impressed at how much you can get out of 3D Coat just rendering it right there. That's a lot to work with.
And I mean, I could also go in, of course, in the paint room and start painting on top of these straight away if I wanted, like I showed you before. So the first thing I needed to do was kind of crack the design on these, and I know that we were several people working on these together, but this was my take with, of course, the design director Doug Chang. He's overseeing all of this and giving feedback. So after that, I took all these and put them together into a scene. And I think this pattern is actually based on a photo from Google Earth somewhere in Africa.
Cool.
There's some village that was built up like this. Maybe it was some kind of crop fields. And when I saw it, it just felt like Star Wars to me. It was something with the ship. So
I mean, it has kind of that Millennium Falcon cockpit window sort of feel,
isn't it? Yeah.
So agricultural TIE fighter window.
Exactly. So I thought this could be a cool pattern for the these little ponds here, and then the ATSD comes in here and
that episode in particular, I think, had some really great world building in it. The going from the the initial town that he arrived in out to the village and how he got there and everything we're seeing here. You know, even for just one episode of the story, a lot of great world building.
Yeah, that was a fun episode to work on. And I told you I had a big interest in film when I was a kid, and my father he had this huge film library, and I was also very interested in samurai. So I was super happy when I heard that they wanted this village to be inspired by the Seven Samurais. So I actually rewatched the whole movie and took some screenshots from it when I started working on this assignment, just to get some more inspiration and see if I could transfer that feeling into my own designs. I was also looking at trying to see if I could get any shots how the actual village was built, what the layout was. So I tried to get a bit of inspiration from. It's a very long movie, but I can really recommend it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, and Akira Kurosawa, I mean, in my opinion, is always a master study in composition.
Yes.
Yeah.
That also. I mean, wow! Look at this. I mean, it's fantastic.
So good. I don't want to rush you, Anton, but I also want to be mindful of your time.
Yes, of course.
We've got a good 40 minutes to go in the stream. If there was more you wanted to show us on this project, or if you wanted to jump to another project.
Yeah, no, we can have a look at something else. Let's see what we have.
I know that one we talked about. And maybe we can hit both of these if we do them efficiently.
Yeah.
The Saloon design that you did. I think it's got some great examples of your set design work.
Yes. Let's open that up.
And then if there's time, maybe we can finish off with just a really quick look at how you built up the Mandalorian Covert.
Yeah.
Because I think you started with maybe a cruder model for that one, and then really built it out with painting.
So here's a design I did for season 2, and it's in the little mining town, I think it is, or something like that, in far out in the desert, Mos Pelgo. So we tried to come up with a design for the saloon, and here's my take on the exterior. And here's
I love the modular feeling, by the way. At least to me, it felt modular of the buildings, almost like they were like prefabricated structures that they dropped in for this settlement and then built around them.
Yes, that was really, really great work. I actually came in a little bit later on the design, so I think we have to thank all the Ryan Church and Eric Tiemens and maybe Altsman was involved in that. So they had already kind of built up that town, and we needed to come up with this building, and I got tasked to do the design for that.
Cool.
And I think I'm always trying to work with association in my work. So in this case, I thought might have been inspired by these old Clint Eastwood movies when they're out in the what do you call it? In the landscape, and maybe you see a church, a white church somewhere, a chapel, like that. So I thought maybe this could kind of have some. At least that was the starting point for me.
For sure.
I always have to have some kind of a starting point when I design something.
It distinguishes it as a building of importance.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the art style here is a little bit different, and this is an art style I used quite a lot before. It's a very efficient way of working, I have to say. And I can show you exactly what I mean, because I did this building is also done in 3D code. Let's see if we can open up that scene. I can show you. So what I basically did, I did a kind of a rough 3D sketch. And then I took it into a different render program, in this case, Keyshot. But you can use any, I think you can use Blender and you can get the same result. So I did use a toon shader. So I got the render program to draw lines for me. But the 3D model was pretty simple, so I could add extra drawing on top of it with just a brush with this kind of similar.
It feels a lot like that early concept work for Star Wars. You know, sort of the Joe Johnston line drawings with markers and that kind of stuff.
Yes. Let's see. I think I need to just try that again. Sometimes my computer can't handle having too many programs.
Sure. I think we all live there. Probably all of us watching the stream today. That's where we live.
Thanks for your patience. Oh, okay. So I tried to open the whole city. That was not the idea, but okay. Yes, that was the other one. Let's see. Okay.
Someone's wanting to know if you know if 3D coat is widely used by concept artists.
No, I don't think it is actually. But I know some of my favorite concept artists are using it, and one of them is, of course, Jama Jurabai, and he taught me how to use 3D coat. I took his course in 2016.
Gotcha.
And that was a fantastic course, and it kind of helped me to take the step into the 3D world, because I tried to learn Maya before. I use SketchUp sometimes, but it wasn't working quite well, and it was just a little bit too hard for me to learn. I think probably because I'm a musician, I want to. I don't really like when it's too much of clicking buttons and doing sliders and writing numbers in code. 3D code is a bit more like painting. It's if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and I know that Jama has some fantastic stuff for 3D coat. I learned Blender from watching Jama's tutorials on Gumroad. I think he's done, at least what I knew, he was one of the first concept artists to really start like actually teaching using tools like this in the concept design workflow.
Yes, he's a fantastic teacher and a fantastic artist. You should, if you don't know who he is, you should really check him out. He has a really great way of focusing on just what you need to know. And that's perfect for my kind of workflow. Because I don't have the patience and time to learn everything from from A to Z, and so yeah, let's see if I can open this up as well. I did something like that. Okay, yeah.
Someone wanted to know if you ever used VR sculpting as part of your process.
No, I haven't. Well, I tried it, but it's one of those things that's on the list that I want to learn.
Yeah.
But
there's some really cool stuff happening in Adobe Medium right now too with VR.
Yes. I think I would love it. If I had time, let's say if I took a few months off work, I would definitely go and learn it.
Yeah.
But I've been too busy working, and also, yeah, I just hadn't had time to learn it. But I'm very excited to jump over to VR as soon as possible. Okay, so design-wise, I think this whole bar here, that was inspired by something from Phantom Menace, Watto's workshop.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that.
Yes, I always thought that was such a great design, that whole space. So I kind of borrowed some of these.
And it would make sense. It's the same planet, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe these guys in Watto shopped at the same, outfitter furniture place or something. I don't know.
Maybe it was the same architect. Yeah.
Tatooine IKEA.
Exactly. So that's kind of what that looks in 3D code. And let's see if I can do.
Oh, I see the question that came in regarding comparing ZBrush to 3D Coat. I don't know how much experience you've had with ZBrush, Anton, but I can jump in and say that I think when you're working with Dynamesh at a higher resolution, it can be similar to voxel sculpting, like you do in 3D Coat. Like you just basically just give yourself a lot more of a volumetric resolution to work with, and then you can slice and model and that kind of stuff. But like all software, there's things that ZBrush is exceptional at, and there's also things that 3D Coat has its own specialization at as well.
Yes, I've tried ZBrush before. I tried to learn it, but I think I never really gotten into it because it was a bit too unintuitive for me. 3D Coat for me felt very similar to Photoshop.
Yeah. And I've heard that a lot. A lot of people have crossed over from Photoshop into 3D Coat.
Yes. Yeah. And I even customize all my shortcuts. So it's the same. If I press M, I get like a marquee tool.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
And if I press B, I get the brush. I can just start paint on top. And
yeah, 3D Coat actually.
It's a very fast and fluent program, and it's great for sketching. I'm sure you can, if you're good at ZBrush, you could do the exact same thing. It doesn't really matter. But I don't know. For me, it feels really good to work in. But however, nowadays I work mostly in Blender because I have a lot of assets I'm using, and it's only when I do something more organic I go into.
Well, and Jama's made some fantastic custom tools for Blender as well that bring some of that 3D Coat,
yes,
drawing in space and that kind of stuff into Blender.
Yes. I can show you. Maybe I can show you the Photoshop file for this. Just
sure.
Let's see where I have that one. I'm gonna. I think it's this
one. I have to say that ever since I saw some of the works by you and the rest of the team with Doug in the credits for the Mandalorian season 1, and saw illustrations similar to this. One of the things I immediately wanted to do was to have an opportunity to talk with you guys. How did you make it? How did you use 3D? What tools did you use? How did you go about it? So just getting to chat with you today is a real treat.
I'm glad to hear. I'm super excited. Okay, so this is you all saw what the 3D file looked like, and then I took it to Keyshot and did a render.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks something like this. But I also did a line drawing render from Keyshot.
Yeah, Keyshot has a great toon shader.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's really, really quick. So I could get to this point just from what I had. I could get to this point quite quickly. But then, of course, as I suggested before, I didn't put too much effort into detailing everything in 3D for this workflow. Mm-hmm. I made everything very, very basic. So instead, I can just turn it off and on.
And it's great how just the line work that you did by hand just blends beautifully with the lines from that toon shader.
Yeah, I think, let's see if I have it here. It still works. I tried to create a brush that would look exactly like the lines from the toon shader, so they would mix. So I created a specific brush for that.
Yeah, that's great. Is it a little bit? Did you have to do? Is it a little bit of custom more than just a round brush? How you achieve that?
Just a little bit more, but I needed a bit of texture on it as well.
Gotcha.
And I think I added, just a bit of, almost like a marker,
Yeah, it's great.
Adding a bit of tone just for readability.
This looks super fun too, just like building it up like this.
And a little surprise. We come back to this location. I assume everyone has seen The Mandalorian, so here comes some spoilers. After they killed that big animal, they come back to the bar, and the bar has changed.
Awesome.
So they decorate it with some rib cage, and that's also one of the benefits with having a 3D scene where I have saved all the camera angles.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that we would return to this location a year later or whenever it was. So I could just pick up that old scene and add these structures and do a render from the same angle. And that saved me tons of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, to do that.
Yeah, I think I noticed in some of the concepts you did for Battlefront on taking some of the models from other members of the team and then drawing set dressing in on some of those sets. I could see you using very similar workflow at that point too.
That's quite that was very common workflow when or not workflow. That was a very common thing to do at DICE in the end of the production, where things were kind of coming together in the game, but we needed to push it to that extra 5-10%. So what happened? We took screenshots. This is what it looks like right now in the level, and we took screenshots to the concept artist, and we did paintovers.
Yes.
So I did quite a lot. We did quite a lot of that. Should we look at that other scene, or
let's. In fact, I was thinking while you pull up the covert, we'll kind of we'll use our last 30 minutes to look at the covert and take a few of the questions that we haven't gotten to yet. So while you're getting that ready, I'm going to just bring a few up. Someone's just curious to know how viable you think remote work is and will continue to be. Because I know that you're working remote with Lucasfilm. Do you feel like that's something that is now more a part of the professional environment now than it was in the past?
Yeah, I would guess so, especially after this COVID. People realize that it works quite well, and I also think that it might be tricky to ask people to move to other countries sometimes, and but if you can offer them to work remotely, you have a bigger chance on getting some really some people that would work really well for that role.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's see, if you don't mind me while you're doing that, bringing in questions. Sure. I don't want to slow you down. But someone else was just wanting to know, what programs do you suggest for someone who is interested in projects like The Mandalorian to learn? And they wanted to know if learning Blender is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be enough. I'm using Blender like 95% of the time.
Yeah. And then and then you just answered the next question, which was what software do you find yourself using the most often?
Yeah. I'm using Blender. I don't see any reason you have to use Blender. There are other programs you could use if you know them. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I think Blender, for me, it was... I tried to learn Maya before. It was a bit too unintuitive for me. Blender clicked much faster. So...
Yeah, I think one of the nice things Blender has going for it as well, of course, is that it's 100% free. And because it's sort of this open source project, there's a massive support community built around it of people offering, tutorials and those kind of things. Oh, cool. We are in the covert now.
We are in the covert. We're actually above.
Yeah.
So this was the first thing I started working on was this hidden base, the Mandalorian enclave in the this town. What is it called? I just forgot what it was called. Maybe someone knows in the
and that's okay. No one's gonna fault you. I mean, you obviously have a hand in Star Wars, so there's no one can blame you.
Nevarro.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny because usually when I work on these designs, I don't know the name of it, so I have to come up with my own name.
Yeah, I've heard this often from designers. Yeah.
It's so early in the it's usually at the same time as the script is written. I'm doing some of the designs, or just after the script has been written. So maybe they even hadn't come up with. So okay, the first thing I did, I think, was trying to do some kind of entrance to the secret base, and I think I started by doing this fountain, and I wanted to make a secret entrance under the fountain.
Which is pretty cool.
I wonder if I have that concept somewhere. Let me find it quickly for you. I can show you what it looked like. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is one of the first paintings I did for the show, I think. Not the first. I can show you the first one as well, just for fun. And as you can see, my 3D skills was very, very limited at this stage. I was mostly relying on painting and photo bashing in this case. But at least I got some. I think I got the perspective from this scene. So we enter the base, and there's a narrow spiral staircase going down here. I think because I worked at DICE for 7 years, I'm pretty used to thinking, building like a level.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Whenever I got this an assignment, I didn't just do like one image. I usually wanted to do a whole scene.
Yeah, this is cool. And if,
so
if they ever build a toy of this, they can just ask you for your files. You know, if you need the
I get asked quite a lot.
Really?
Quite often people want do you have any STL files, and they want to build these things, but I can't really send them off.
Of course, yeah.
But if they are watching, they can watch carefully, and they will know what to build.
Right.
But so the challenge here for me was I needed to come up with something that would work as a hideout, and it should feel. I mean, how can you build a secret base under a city without no one noticing? So I thought maybe it makes sense if this is like an old sewer system, tunnels under the city. I was looking at some old some photos from Rome, because they have some pretty cool tunnels under there. I can show you the. Where is that? So we are here now.
Yeah.
And then we get into the actual base. Oops. Where is it? Let's see. Oh, a bit lost. Yes.
These two guys playing the game, for me, was one of the coolest things that I saw in just the the initial episodes of season 1. I just thought, this is great. I love it.
Yeah, that was, you can almost call it not a happy accident, but I didn't really intend to do that. Was not the idea that I should do make an image of them. I can show you the image if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, the idea was that I was supposed to design this space, but of course, when you design something, your imagination starts flowing, and you think, okay, so this is the space, but we need people in here. Okay, so the Mandalorians are here, and what are Mandalorians doing when they're not out fighting? I have no idea. I've never seen. I only seen them fighting, so I have no idea what they're doing when they're just. Are they can't be there, drinking beer. That wouldn't be good. They have to stay sharp. So I thought, okay, maybe if this is kind of a temporary space, maybe they have just a little game, like a strategic game. In my mind, I always thought that these like Boba Fett and the Mandalorians, they are not just fantastic fighters. It's not just that they have fantastic gear with all this, rockets and knives and flamethrowers and all that stuff. That's not just enough. They have to be very, very smart and tactical. So I thought that's why they are so good. They're good fighters. They have all the gear, but they're also very, tactical. So I thought maybe that's what they're doing. These games are a way of kind of, in a playful way. What do you usually say about chess? It's a battle of the minds.
Yes.
So I thought this could be like Mandalorian chess or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Now somebody's going to go. Some fan is going to like come up with the rules for this. Now they're going to call it Mandalorian chess, and it's going to be a whole thing. And then you can say that you invented it.
Yeah, please let me know. I would be most interested in purchasing one in that case.
That for me is, because I love working on characters, but at the end of the day, it's like everything has personality. Everything is a character to a certain degree. So when you take an environment like that and you ask those kinds of questions and you come up with a solution like that with them playing a game to sharpen their strategic skills, that just puts soul into the space. It gives it a story.
I think you really said it there, because I've been thinking about how do I come from point A with a kind of blank page to point B, a finished drawing, painting, and it's all about, I think, for me at least, it's all about asking questions. I'm asking myself questions all the time, and when I find the answer to all these questions, the image is there, So what is this place, and why, and when, and what happens next, and all these questions. Should it be dark or light? Should it be wet or dry? Should it be metal or wood, or should it be? If I ask enough questions, and then I'm looking for all the answers, these answers together get the result. In a way. Let me just show you. So this was when I was working on my laptop.
Okay.
I'm just going to step back a few times here. So this is what it looked like, the render. That's what I had to work with, and then I stitched different renders on top of each other with where I put the light in different angles, and then gradually I started painting on top of this, and there we have it.
And for it's like some of the material indication that you have there, like where the paint is scratched away on the helmet, we can see that Beskar steel underneath. Were you doing like one render pass where it was steel and then another render pass where it was more matte, like paint, and then masking that in and out, or were you just hand painting that in?
I think this is a kind of combination of both. Let me have a look. The layer structure, it's a bit messy, but let's see what we can find. I think that was let's see. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if I look at this render, yes, I was only kind of using preset materials or shaders that looked. I mean, this looks pretty bad, but if I just masked in here and there, kind of helped.
Absolutely. And that initial very crude render that you showed it's really not that dissimilar to when you see someone build up a traditional painting and you start with that very simple sort of value underpainting before you start laying in color and detail and stuff.
Oh, interesting. Just this little light on the head, I just put a curve.
Oh, yeah. Kind of that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see how you've the way that you've, and all of the projects we looked at today, each one has its own sort of story in how you built it up, and different sensibilities, so I think it's a great example for us of how it's important to understand, how you're approaching it as a painter. Like you can't replace foundational art skills. Like those need to be on point, but then you're just taking the tool and using it as a tool, right? You're deciding, oh, I'll use this tool to solve that problem, or this tool over here, or I'll decide to do it more painting than 3D on this one.
Yes. I mean, if there's anything I wanted to show you during this live stream is show that for all of these different assignments, I'm kind of changing the way I work, and I'm still learning new tools, and I know that no tool will give me a finished image like 100%. I need to take it at least the last 5-10%. I need to use my inner vision, my skills, my painting skills, and have a bit of luck maybe as well to get to the end. Because this is a totally different approach than I've used for the other ones. And you saw that line drawing. Maybe we can have a look. I think it could be interesting to have a look at some of the... you showed this in the beginning, but I just want to go back to it again.
Yeah, we can kind of take our last 10 minutes and jump into this.
Yeah, we can just do it really, really quickly, because this is kind of where I came from. This is where I started. And there's no 3D involved at all here. So I did all this. Actually, all this I did in a week. And it's around maybe 40 thumbnails for different ideas for 4 different planets for the Battlefront games. And I just want to show you where I started. Because I think this is quite fun. So at this stage, I have no pressure on drawing nice drawings. This is more like children's drawing, I would call it. This is about trying to get different ideas down quickly. And this is about the Andor planet. So maybe they have this idea was maybe they have a secret rebel base behind a waterfall. Sounds a bit cheesy, maybe.
No, I think that's cool. That needs to happen.
Yeah, maybe.
I want to see an X-wing fly through a waterfall.
Yeah. And this was an idea about the burnt down forest. Could be cool because we haven't seen that in the movies. Like how could that look like? Maybe a huge tree in the Andor. Maybe some strange wildlife. Maybe some decoration, tribal stuff. A huge log that has fallen, and they have carved out. Maybe it's almost like a termite nest in it. But the size of human can be inside. So that was the starting point, and I did the same for. This is for Tatooine. And I think this was for Hoth, because I can see some people hanging.
Nice, there. Yeah.
And frozen geysers and.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And big footprints, and maybe in the ice, it could be like animal that would be frozen in the that you can actually see.
Yeah,
I can show you here. So this is some of the sketches I did, and then I just started painting inside the sketches. That sounds a bit weird. Let's see. And let me go back to this one. So here's for Andor.
Yeah.
Almost like storyboard sketches.
Yeah.
And here we can see the next step. I think I put some photos as textures, and then I painted on top.
Mm-hmm.
And here we can see some of that.
That's that centipede, yeah.
And here's some more finished ones.
See, now I want to go back and play Battlefront again. It's been a little while, but the thing I loved about those games was it was the first, outside of the X-Wing simulator in the 90s or the late 80s, early 90s that we had. It was the first time I really felt like I was in a Star Wars movie, you know, running around those environments and hearing the music and seeing the world building that took place to expand Hoth beyond what we saw in the films.
Yes, and that was so much fun working on these Battlefront games, because that was the whole idea, to really show what we didn't see in the movies. And,
absolutely.
And of course, not much of this happened in the game, but this was so early. This was, I think, there was not many people on the team when I did this. So kind of blue sky ideas for.
Yeah, and it's, I think on any project, it's always, you're always going to have more ideas than you can execute, which is kind of, I would think, the way that you want things to be, you know. So there's always this wealth of inspiration to draw from for what ultimately gets produced. But seeing some of the ideas that you laid out, I'm like, oh, we need a Battlefront 3 now, because we need to get some of these some of these things out here. Yeah. This has been fantastic, Anton. This has been an awesome tour, I think, you know, both through your story, you know, taking some of the great art that we've seen in, you know, the credits to some of these shows, but to really see how you put it together. And I think you've done a great job to show us how it is this combination of, you know, the tools don't make the artist, but if you understand what you want to accomplish as an artist, you can then grab any tool and really have it help you accomplish your goal. So it's really, really cool to see the way that you're doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, now you've done your first live stream, so
Yes.
many more to come, I'm sure. Yeah, and I was thrilled when I heard that, you know, because I know that it was only recently, I think, that a lot of the Lucasfilm artists were sort of given the green light to start sharing their work, and showing a lot of the artwork behind the shows. So it's been a real treat to get you on the stream and jump into all of this.
Yes, it's been super fun. I'm as you probably can tell, I'm very happy to talk about my work. And,
yeah,
so much more I could tell.
Yeah, if it were up to me, we'd spend the rest of the day and into the night on this stream, just going and going. I don't want to stop. But I like to ask all of the guests that I have the pleasure of getting to speak with, maybe if you had any parting words of advice or just thoughts for aspiring artists out there that are seeing what you're doing, you know, and like how you looked at some of the work of the artists that went before you, and you were inspired, you know, to work on projects like this. Thinking of artists that may be young, or maybe there's artists out there that are wanting to pivot later in life. Is there anything that you'd like to share with those guys?
Yeah, well, what would I say? Well, I mean, in my case, I had no idea where this journey would take me, and I think, as I mentioned before, it was really when I sat down and started thinking about what do I really like, and try to remind myself, because I kind of forgotten about all these things.
Yeah.
And when I kind of rediscovered some of these things that I really loved as a child, and when I actually made a decision. So it was like two parts. One was kind of going back and see what do you like in your life, or what do you want. Not looking too much at what other people do.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did that too much when I was younger, and that's why I didn't go follow that path. I kind of abandoned it. So get in touch with your inner compass and let that lead you, and that will probably take you to places that you can't really foresee. So let that inner compass surprise you and lead the way. And also you have to be prepared to work quite hard also.
Yeah, but I love that advice. I think that the hard work comes more easily, in a sense, when you have that compass and you understand what you're passionate about and what you're willing to work hard for. And I love that advice, because so often I'll hear younger artists ask questions like, well, where are the jobs? What's the thing I should focus on so that I can get work? And those are all good and practical questions. But the first and foremost question, in my opinion, is what you're saying, which is, well, what are you all about? What are you most passionate about? Because if you add the work to that, you can make a living making something that you love. You just don't know what the path to get to that point is going to look like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's tremendously encouraging. And yeah, and I hope that there's folks out there today that may be the ones that are asking, like, is it too late for me to transition into something that I love? So I hope that you guys have been able to take some inspiration away from Anton and realize, like, no, it's never too late. And I think you're kind of embodying Qui-Gon Jinn and just telling us, be mindful of the living force and not just the outcomes or the other things. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have a pleasant rest of your evening, or whatever time of day it is in your part of the world.
Yes, it's around 9 o'clock in the evening here, so okay. I'll enjoy maybe watching some Andor. I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely. Yes, that is on the list for me today as well. So awesome. Well, we'll stay in touch, and I look forward to our next opportunity to do something together.
Thanks everyone for joining in. You can always you can write to me on Instagram if you have any further questions. So don't be a stranger.
Awesome. Thank you, Anton. Okay. All right. And farewell, everybody. See you back on the stream again soon.